Hey guys, and welcome back. Oh my gosh, as soon as I start talking, traffic builds up. Anyway, in today's video, I'm going to just be basically cleaning my whole entire yard, probably the top of my porch, everything really from top to bottom, front to back, really needs some scrub down and some trimming, and then also some planting, some perennials that I desperately need to get to doing. If you haven't seen my videos from Mexico, I will pin those up here and also in the description below. Go catch those. Those are a lot of fun. But I'm back now. It's time to get back to work. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you around what I'm going to kind of be tackling and then get right to it. The other thing I want to mention is that right before we left to Mexico, I was filming on putting an irrigation system in, and so you may see a little bit of that. I have not completed that video, so if you're wondering what that is, it's something exciting that's going to happen. So okay, let me get started. Let me stop chit-chatting.
Come all you young rounders, and a story I'll tell of the promise of heaven.
So again, I still have a couple liatrices that I have to plant. I have a calla lily over there I got to plant. I need to trim back, deadhead basically these valerian root. That's for here. Maybe do a little trimming on the salvias, trim a little bit on that salvia. I'm going to pull out the Delphine once and for all, get her out of here. She's not showing any progress, so she's out. I got to clean up the lilies around here and here. Pretty much that's it for this area. I've got my President Clematis that I need to pick up and kind of pin over this direction. It's going to bloom again for me. Over here, I just need to really sweep up, clean this so much. I mean, it really needs, and then clean this up because it's all a mess. So one more thing that I want to show you in this side is my nasturtium container here. It really looks pretty bad, and so I'm going to be taking out all the nasturtiums completely out of there and leave my lamium, my heucheras, and maybe the spikes behind it. But I don't think I'm going to be doing nasturtiums anymore. Didn't turn out to look as nice as I was expecting it to look, but then leaving for 2 weeks doesn't help either. But yeah, I'm just going to clean this up and leave it be for now. On this side over here, the lamium here looked beautiful in the springtime, but around June, July, this pretty much starts looking a little weathered here. So I'll be trimming these things up, then just kind of tidy this up, clean all this stuff up. It's all looking fairly well, but like underneath, you know, it's just over saturated with stuff that doesn't need to be there. I'm gonna take out this champion rose. My rose bush, as you can see, continuing to bloom, but I do need to deadhead and trim back that. Not too much over in this side, just kind of clean up this lamium. This side, my spiderwort, look at how beautiful the flower is on that. Isn't that just gorgeous? And then at night it closes up. But it's about done for the season. That's why it's all flopped over. And so I do need to cut it down. And everything else seems to be doing fine. Just clean up, basically. My dahlia's doing really great. I do need to deadhead it. Let's see, on this side, these are the 3 plants, which is a Russian sage here, and I believe that is a salvia. I don't even think it has the tag on it. Let me see. Does it even have a tag on it? Oh, yeah, it does. So this, yeah, it's a salvia. I'll just show you the tag. So I need to plant these. This is also another oregano hop-like plant. Totally removing that out. Maybe doing something else in that pot. And then just kind of deadhead this butterfly bush. Clean up this area here. Kind of clean up my lilies. Aren't those beautiful? But they're not doing really well this year. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the heat or the pollen or what. If you guys know what this is caused by, let me know. But I may have to spray it or give it some plant food or something. But just clean this up. A butterfly tree here. As you can see, as I mentioned, once it flowers and stuff, that it all gets weighed down. So as you can see, I have some limbs here that I'm going to be chopping off. But it's a beautiful, beautiful flower. Love it. My maple or my butylon here isn't doing really great. But everything else seems to be doing good. My bleeding heart, here we are in the middle of July and it's still around. So this is getting perfect lighting and the amount of watering that it needs. This, I'm gonna just kind of clean it up. As you can see, I've got a lot of new growth coming up, climbing up the wall again. So I'm gonna have to try to push them down. This is done for the season. I'm gonna just completely clean this out. Then over here, just kind of trim this, kind of tidy this up over here. And then over here, I put a little bag in the back of my clematis because it's getting too much sun on their feet. So I got to do something with that and replace that. That looks kind of sloppy. And yeah, trim back the salvia and just kind of clean this whole area right here. Okay, you guys, so that's what I'm going to do today. Enjoy the video. I'm going to put on some music and hopefully get through this very quickly so that you can see the after. Let's get started. Just in case you want to know how to deadhead valerian root, the best way to deadhead this is you will see where you've got the main stream, the main flower here. Then you'll see a new branch here and a new branch there. That's where you want to take it down to. And sometimes I don't have a splitter, except for way down there. So basically what you want to do is take it to these next clusters here.
This is a good a day as any to start the rebuilding of life. The roads that lay open are many when the old one's gone under the knife. And I can feel the sun on my skin, beginning to thaw from within. Today and not tomorrow, there's no time to borrow. Today is a good day to live. This morning has a clearer light as any to see the horizon and the far. Excuses were 2 for a penny, but they've all gone out the window of this car. And when I feel the wind on my face, all that ever was is a wreck. a good day today.
Wet. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so giddy right now. Oh my gosh. I just did a major yard cleanup. So let's get started with showing you, and then I'm in my day. So let's get started with that. Hope you enjoyed this video, you guys, and thank you so much for your love and support. I tell you, if it weren't for you watching, and if you're new to my channel and you just subscribed, thank you. I can't do my channel without you guys. So thank you for that support. And yeah, let me turn the camera around because I'm excited. So on this porch garden, what I ended up doing is I took out 3 of the 5 lilies that I planted in the springtime in the back over there. I ended up putting 2 of them over here, and I planted 2 liatrices over here. They're blazing star, and then I planted one of the lilies right behind it. Basically add a little bit more dirt in here. I transplanted my hot lips salvia from where the blazing stars are right now, the liatris are. I ended up taking it out and placing it over here, and as you can see, salvia, hot lip salvias, they're extremely hardy. They don't necessarily need to be trimmed, but I trim them because the more sun they get, the larger they get, and I like them to stay at a certain size. So I tend to trim these 2 right here quite often, just to keep them a little bit more in control over here, manageable size, I should say. And let's see, so going back over here, this right here, this liatris over here, I believe it's a specca, and I thought it was a red hot poker. I mentioned that in the spring garden tour, but it's not. I turns out that it was another liatris, which I'm really happy because I love liatrices, whether they're a specca or blazing star. They're both very beautiful. I decided not to plant the other 2 liatrices here because I really need areas where I can step into this garden, and the lilies will help me with that. And then over here I planted the Canna lily over here. This is a zone 7 to 11, and this one will get tall. It gets plenty of sun right in this area. And then I just left 2 of the lilies here, and hopefully they will get taller over time. And then I planted probably about 3 lilies that my neighbor gave me. I don't know what color they are. I did end up knocking off some of the flowers that were starting, so I'll have to wait till next spring to find out what color they are. And then on this side, I ended up cleaning all the dead foliage off of the lilies here, as well as in this side, and it just made it look really fresh. I typically will do that on all my lilies because it saves me a lot of time come fall when all the foliage is dying down. It just is so much easier of a cleanup, and so for that reason, that's why I do it. Plus, it makes them look fresh again and makes my garden look good. So that's the reason for that. And then over here, I ended up pinning and putting my President Clematis and draping it up here and pinning it up there so that it can continue to grow across. The other thing that I did is that I ended up cleaning out all the nasturtium, as I mentioned. I left my heucheras over here, as well as some lamium and the spikes right behind on the top of them. And it still looks really good. I will be planting some other type of annuals over here for the rest of the season, but for now, it still looks really good. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this area. And the ladies absolutely love the way the yard looks like now. And then on this side of the garden, I cleaned it up. I ended up cleaning a lot of that wild rose and just thinning it out and actually cutting a lot of the ones that were flopped over in this area. And then I cleaned up back here and just gave it a new lease in life by adding some mulch on here. I could add some more, does need more, but for now, it is what it is. I also ended up cleaning a lot of the foliage that was underneath there, which was a lot of the lamium. Didn't need to be underneath there, so took that out, and it looks so much nicer. I also ended up taking some of the lower foliage off of this snowflake oak leaf hydrangea just to pick it up from the ground a little bit, and it just looks like I gave it a new lease in life as well. And then over here, I actually ended up taking out all the champion rose out of here, and these 3 are daisies. These are the free plants that I also picked up from the garden center. And now these are annuals, so next year I'll do something different, but it looks so much prettier than it did before. And I'm actually getting a new daisy flower. These are red in color, and it's just pleases me to see that they're alive. And so this will be for now. Next year it'll change. And then I trimmed my rhododendron. Rhododendrons don't need to be trimmed, but I trim them because I have the rose bush here, and as you can see, the rose bush, I really gave it a bit of a trim. Took out all the dead flowers and just really pruned it. Now this I prune several times a year, and it continues to bloom all the way into fall. Love this magic blanket rose bush. On this side, I had my Lucid Dream heucheras over here. I took them out because they were getting just a little bit too much sun, and even though they do good, I took them out. I'll do annuals here. I took out my spiderwort. It will still resurface as foliage, but it's done for the season. So just as fillers, I'll do some annuals over here. And this area here does get quite a bit of light. Then I took out a lot of the lamium over here. deadheaded my the Sol Dahlia. Look at this. This is so beautiful. And this hasn't quite opened up all the way. This will get even larger. But those are beautiful. Let's see, just kind of cleaned all this area up over here. And then I placed my Lucid Dream hookeras over here. I think this is going to be so much nicer for them. They're going to get big and full, and they are more protected from the sun, and they're going to get the appropriate amount of sun. Plus, they're going to shade my Boulevard Clematis so that next year it does so much better. And I added a couple stones just to keep the roots a little cooler. So that was something else I did. Then on this side, I just basically cleaned all this up, kind of trimmed and pinned up some of the branches of my Perennials Hydrangea, because next year it's going to be a lot more vigorous growing, and I really want to train it to go up this lattice. So I did take some of the lower foliage off of it, and then just kind of pinned up some of those branches over. And I'm hoping that this isn't going to be overkill for this area. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully I don't have to pull it out. Let's see, I cleaned that, took out a lot of the dead limbs off of this fern, and cleaned up my astilbe because it got some damage from when I'm putting this irrigation system. It was getting not enough water right there when I left for vacation, so it kind of suffered a little bit, but kind of caged it up, and it's still got foliage, still working, and next year it'll look even better. Are you following me? Are you following me, lady? Are you just looking around and saying, wow, this is really great? Well, thank you. So on this side, I ended up adding some more stones here because it really was too much. You know, I really don't need a lot of space here for flowers. But as you can see, my valerian root here, it was actually rotting because it was getting way too much water from all the rainfall, as well as this whole major gutter was directed there. And so I redirected that. So next year, if it doesn't survive, I will plant another one there because I really like valerian root. Let's see, I trimmed my abutilon or flowering maple because it just looked like it wasn't getting the appropriate amount of water, and so it kind of suffered while I was gone. But giving it a little bit of a trim really kind of made it look pretty good. And then on this side, just basically cleaned up the lamium, and also took out all the dead leaves off of this one, or trimmed them back, and then redirected a lot of the limbs, the new growth that was coming out on both sides, that was climbing up this wall again. I redirected them this direction. Now you can actually see this lattice that is just a work of art in itself. It's very, very old. It's kind of like a Chinese lattice. And I've had it for many years. And I painted it red just to give some color. But yeah, it's going to look pretty. Now, I think what I'm going to do with this winter clematis is just really work hard to keep it maintained to this capacity, to this growth capacity, because this can get out of control, especially once it becomes a vigorous grower. So if you don't have a fence that you can just let it go, it's not invasive, but it does grow really tall. And if you don't have a fence and you have it like I do, you kind of want to keep it a little bit maintained so that it looks pretty without it being overwhelmed. And so I think I'm going to keep it that way. So love it. Love the look right now. And then on this side here, I just basically cleaned up the leaves that come off of this butterfly tree. And I did pick it up a few branches. I trimmed a few of the branches that were right here and just picked them up from being kind of weighed down. But it's in bloom and it's looking beautiful. So yeah, I just basically just kind of took all the dead leaves from this tree that were here and just cleaned up a lot of the lamium that was in here, and it's doing great. I actually got some flowers from my Golden Gate fuchsia here, so finally bloomed this year. Gonna do great. This is supposed to get about 3 feet tall, so we'll see next year what happens. This fuchsia here, I don't see any blooms coming in, but I just kind of moved it over a little bit so it's a little bit more centered over on this side. I did end up trimming my Rainbow Fist by Rhea over here, getting it off the ground and from being all flopped over looking. So it looks really great right now. And it still has a few little blooms here and there. Over here, I just took out my Macroom Dracula plant over here. It's done for the season, so that'll stay like this until next spring when it comes back. And then this is my irrigation hose that will be fixed. I took out the container here that was over here. I just had basically a thyme herb in it, but I just kind of like having this space to be able to walk back. This is a lily of the valley, and so it just looks cleaner, and I'm just really happy with the way it looks. It looks like springtime again, and I do have guests coming in at the end of the month, so hopefully it saved me a lot of time. And yeah, so this is my south side yard. Let's see, back here, I just kind of cleaned that up, didn't do too much. This here, this is kind of like that Hanakola Japanese grass. Now, it looks really weathered and like it's dying, but it isn't. It looks like this in the spring, in the very hot summer months, but it'll come back in springtime. All this will look greener and beautiful once again. But it suffers a little bit, but it'll survive. And so I placed that container that had the thyme herb in it in here because I do plan to put more herbs in there. This gets a lot of sun, so afternoon sun, so I figure it'll do well. And then I just placed this succulent container that I had because I thought it kind of gave it a nice, beautiful topping. And then I basically just cleaned out my dining area of my pergola, and it just looks really stunning now. Let's see, back here, I didn't end up trimming my St. John's wort because, it doesn't really need it. And over here, I really didn't do anything other than I added a couple of stones to the back of both of my clematis to help keep the roots a little cooler. It was just getting too much sun on the roots, so it hasn't done a lot of growth. I mean, they've grown, but they just haven't flowered a lot this year. That's okay. My broomstruck hydrangea, even though it does look like it needs something, and if you guys can help me out, this hydrangea, I'm surprised that it stayed alive and it continues to bloom because it has a lot of issues all the time. And I can see that it has some corrosives. I've been giving it some iron, so I need to just add some more iron to it. But it's still beautiful. Look at that. That is just gorgeous. So I just basically just kind of cleaned. That's the chickens' water when they're out here. And then I just cleaned all this up This will probably change at a certain point because I really want to add more flowers to this garden, and this is just taking up a lot of real estate and preventing me from doing that. But this part here gets all afternoon shade. From about right here over, it does get all afternoon sun, very bright. So things do really well back here. My salvia, I ended up trimming that, cutting it back. Always do that because it gets really large, as you saw. And my spider lily here, this is one of my most beautiful lilies that I had. Over here, I have a lot of coneflowers. I added some yarrow over here, coneflowers, some echinacea, and then I planted some salvia over here and some Russian sage. And I ended up kind of caging them up because Russian sage kind of gets a little weighed down from the flowers. So just to give it some support, I added these tomato cages on them. And they're not quite in your face, so we'll see how these do over the rest of the season. But otherwise, just kind of cleaned it all up. And it's looking really, really pretty. I love it. So here's for the backyard, you guys. And it feels good to have everything intact. Now I do still need to trim my rock rose over here. But as you can see, I still have my canvas walls up. These will come down at some point before the fall comes around. Desperately need to get those done. I thought I would do it this time, but didn't get around to it. As far as my porch, I cleaned it all out. It feels so good to have it completely cleaned out. I still have a basket underneath there because that is where I keep a lot of my garden tools handy, as well as my garden shoes and my little dustpan. But for the most part, it looks so much nicer than it did before, and not as cluttered and messy in this whole area. But look at my porch, looks so much nicer, less cluttered, and I just absolutely love it because now I can come out here, sit down, and really just enjoy it. It is really shaded because it is in the afternoon, but this makes it really cool for sitting out here in the afternoons and just enjoying the cool breeze. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you when I see you on my next one.